government is a conspiracy of distraction.
Huh.
Because you've got events and crises and scandals. And the most difficult thing is to keep focused when you've got so many things that are diverting you from that core task. And what often happens with leaders, and sometimes what we do with our leaders is we say to them, okay, we're going to do an analysis of, here are your priorities. Here's how much time you spend on them. And you end up literally with people spending 4% of their time on their priorities. And you say, well, no wonder you're not succeeding.
So when you look back at your time as prime minister, or I'm not necessarily picking on your time, just any head of state in Western government or any government, how much of the time they spend is fundamentally wasted? It's not fundamentally moving the ball forward. It's like meeting people, ambassadors, press, whatever. How much of the time is just that?
A lot. I mean, I don't know.
Greater than 80%, 90%?
No, that would be too high, I think. But a lot. And a lot more today. Because people are expected. So I have this thing that I often say to the leaders, and I think this is the single biggest problem with Western politics today. Sometimes when I used to, my kids were younger and I used to speak with them, and I would say to them, work hard, play hard, right? If you work hard, play hard equals possibility of success. Play hard, work hard is certain failure, right? Because you'll play so hard, you never end up working hard, right? The equivalent in politics is policy first, politics second. In other words, work out what the right answer is, and then work out how you shape the politics around that. But actually what happens in a lot of systems today is it's politics first and policy second. So people end up with a political position they've chosen for political reasons, and then they try and shape a policy around that politics, and it never works. Because the most important thing, and this is why I say to you about policymaking is an intellectual business, is you've got to get the right answer. And there is a right answer, by the way. And often, the reason why it's so difficult to govern today is there's so much political noise. It's hard to get out of that zone of noise and sit in a room with some people who really know what they're talking about and go into the detail of what is the solution to a problem. And, sometimes when I talk to leaders about this, and I find that they just say to me, I don't have the time to do that. And I say, if you don't have the time to do that, you are going to fail. Because in the end, you won't have the right answer.
Right.
And you've got to believe over time that the best policy is the best politics over time.
Yeah. So structurally, how would you change it's not just the time you had to spend, for example, talking to the press, but also the kinds of topics that draws attention to, which are what statement your cabinet minister made on the BBC and some latest scandal. Is that fundamentally like the 30 minutes of the PMQs is not the big deal? It's the 2 days you spend in anxiety and preparation that you were talking about in the book. Is that fundamentally the attention distraction is the bigger issue than the actual time you spend on these events?
Yeah, I think it is to a degree. I mean, I think the other thing is you undergo a lot of attack today in politics. And, you at a certain level, what happens, I mean, it could happen to celebrities, but they tend to have at least some sort of fan base that are constantly supporting them. But with politics today, you can often be in a situation where, you're almost dehumanized, right? You're subject to attacks on your integrity, your character, what your intentions. It's possible, if you're not careful, that you're just sitting there thinking this is really unfair, and you get distracted from focusing on the business. And that's why I always say to people, one part of being a political leader, or any leader, I think, is to be able to have a certain sort of what I call a kind of Zen, a bit of a Zen-like attitude to all the criticism and the, disputatiousness that will go on around you, because it's just going to happen. And in today with social media, it happens to an even greater degree. And, one of the things I often say to leaders is you cannot pay attention to this stuff. I mean, okay, get someone to summarize it for you in half a page and you read it in the morning.
GPT can do it for you now.
Yeah, but honestly, you start going in, you go down that rabbit hole, you'll never reemerge.